First, I just want to put up a slide really quickly that just talks about Wikipedia, from Wikipedia, that talks about what transmedia actually is. So in transmedia storytelling, content becomes invasive and fully permeates the audience lifestyle. Ooh. A transmedia project develops storytelling across multiple forms of media in order to have different entry points in the story, entry points with a unique and independent lifespan, but with definitive role in the big narrative scheme. I'm still confused. And when I was in Australia with Jeff Gomez, who is sort of one of the transmedia gurus, I said, you know, how do you describe it, Jeff? And he says, well, it has to be on, transmedia is it's on 2 platforms, and it has a dialogue with the audience. And that's simple enough for me to understand, so hopefully that helps you a little bit. Let's just talk cash, cold hard, the big M word. Where do you make money? Has it generated you more revenue? Can you just talk a bit about that?
Well, the priority for this was to make something that was really cool for the audience, that they'd really enjoy, and that's really important to sponsors as well. So we'd kicked all of this off for Series 1 way before a sponsor was involved, but then Nokia came on board, and they were the broadcast sponsor as well as sponsoring all the online. And
when you say broadcast sponsor, sort of, is that you're talking about that they would bought time in the TV show?
Yeah, that meant, so when in the ad breaks and at the beginning it would say Misfits brought to you by the Obvi store, because that was the thing that Nokia were pushing there.
Okay.
But for them, it made all of the digital stuff we were doing made sponsoring the show much more attractive for them, because they knew that's where they're going to get the most traction, because that's where they're...
And did you track any of those brands? Did you give them an impression number? Did you say, hey, you sponsored this, and this is the number of impressions we got back? Did you give them a lot of data?
In communicating with them, the numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
Mean? Oh, yeah, we share the numbers.
And were they pleased? Or?
Yeah, very, very pleased. And for them, it was the uptake of people downloading. So they made all of the kind of social media feeds and the videos that the characters posted online, all of that. Nokia aggregated into one app, which you could get on their phones.
Brian, talk to us how you're going to monetize.
We're taking a different approach. You know, we did a pilot, and now the advertisers are actually coming to us. And yes, you can do traditional media buy, but not only, this isn't product integration, it's story integration. So, for example, our next philanthropic venture is likely to be food, and hunger. So a huge company fast food that makes healthy fast food will probably participate. And so we begin to integrate them into the story so they actually become a part of the story and their story gets told. But also when we move on to the streets, we are now working on a new business model called cost per immersion, which actually allows, because our participants will be passing through department stores and food outlets and stations and whatnot, that they actually will pay the fees for the cost per immersion for the number of users that will go through the store. So we're really looking at a different way for advertisers to participate. So it's just not straight advertising, although that's likely to be part of it, but it's also the idea of story integration and place integration.
Cool. I'm going to jump into Jean-François.
The first thing, I think, the difficulty is not to monetize. The difficulty is to find the right transmedia content. Once you find the right content, you will monetize, because there are a lot of ways to monetize. You can monetize by SMS, you can monetize by buying the application, you can monetize by, selling items in order to find new objectives.
What's the right transmedia
So
content? How did you decide on this
popular.
book?
I think that we need to have something popular. This is what we want to achieve with Fanfan. It's a very, very popular book here in France. And I think that we need to move from transmedia for gigs to transmedia for popular.
Gaming, huge opportunities across all sorts of, how do you guys monetize this?
You need your audience to be engaged into your brand with a good synergy between multiple mediums to make, so when they're really engaged, they'll be ready to give away money for your content. There's roughly 3 sources of revenues. There's as far as transmedia is concerned. So there's their direct revenue. So luckily there's 10 millions of fans carving for content for Assassin's Creed. So as soon as we're shipping a short film on Xbox Live, PS network, or even on iTunes, so sales is going to be very fast. The second source of revenues are partnership or sponsoring. We might do sometimes event with partners to, to create buzz. And obviously the third is, as an example, for the comic books we're shipping this fall, we've been going with DC for the direct market. But we also have been using our own distribution lines to video games stores to publish the comics itself.
While we go to the question, we started off the top. You said you disagreed with the Wikipedia definition of transmedia. Did you want to just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, first of all, just because something crosses from one platform to the next, I don't know that that's the essence of transmedia or cross-media. I think when story, and I go to the Church of Tim Kring, I guess you could say, but the story sits at the center, and the myth and whatever is the story lives and expresses itself across many platforms. And yes, you can use it to drive the audience, but it is a much richer definition. And what I think is, it's basically that story is at the center, and it's like you said, Gavin, and the audience can interact with the story or not interact with the story. But it's all about the story and then the different ways that it is expressed.
Just before we go to the question, can I just get a comment from you guys? What's your definition of transmedia and how do you think about it? Jody, do you want to go?
I actually kind of think it doesn't really matter what it means, and I mean, we didn't think about.
No, don't go there, Jody.
So
you have to. It has to matter.
But the final note is none of this matters. No. I mean, when we did this, in a nutshell, when we did this last year, I hadn't even heard of the word transmedia, so I still don't exactly know what it means. And I'm on the stage trying to tell you what it is. So I kind of think that's kind of my take on it, I suppose. For me, what we did was to try and tell a story which reached out to an audience and engaged them in places where they were visiting, and kind of reached out into their lives more than. It's not about platforms, it's about telling a cracking story.
Mathieu?
Well, I would say it's an experience that has to be good if you consume it on a single platform, but becomes much more interesting if you jump from a platform to another, or if they're multitasking around it. So.
And Jean-François, I put to you sort of that there's different storytelling in different cultures. There's nuances, but there's different, there's English, French, German. How do you see, because you sort of go across both languages, do you think that there's a different definition for each culture for transmedia?
Yes, really, I think yes, because we saw in our different countries where we are as a Ranger, as an operator, that the culture are really different. There are countries who go quicker on this that we think. For example, France, in this country, the people using a lot Facebook, Twitter, streaming music, and all this kind of thing. So it's easier to do it here for us than to do it, for example, in Spain, where the things are slower for the new technologies. So really? Yes,
I would have thought
it's
if it's
really different.
Wow.
They don't use too much the new technology that they use it in France, for example. This is what I saw.